Okay, let's do a task 1 process. So we're going to look at this one, geothermal power plant, which is from Cambridge 12, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Cambridge 12 test 4, I think it is. So there's a lot to cover. I would like to just start with some notes about processes. The first thing is that these processes can be natural or created by people, man-made. Most of them that you see in IELTS are these man-made ones where it's a product. But there are some natural processes. For example, this one about a fish called the salmon, also from one of the Cambridge books, I forget which one, but this of course is a natural process. Usually the natural processes are cyclical. I'll talk about cyclical. Anyway, we're not going to do natural today. We're going to do man-made or created by people. Process like map, you've got to be very aware of active and passive. In these natural processes, most of the time you'll use active. The bird builds its nest because there aren't people involved doing this to the bird. But in the man-made processes, it's usually people doing the thing to the product. So you will use a lot of passive. As you will see, we can use active sometimes. Sometimes it's good to put an active in. Another thing is no past tense, just present tense, because it's like this thing happens every day. So we're just using present tense. Right, we're going to look at the overview. I won't cover this now. I'll explain this soon. When we do the overview, there's the basic structure of the overview. It's got like 2 parts. This is it's a something process. You'll use some adjectives and then you want to add a which and describe the stages. We'll get to that. If the process is cyclical, remember to end the essay with and the process begins again. That won't happen today. I want you to just notice some vocabulary, steps and stages. The stages are the bigger divisions. The steps are each individual step. So a stage consists of a number of smaller steps. Now, I spoke to the chief examiner once in Vietnam, and he said really in the overview they're looking for dividing the process into stages. Sometimes they do it for you, but if they don't do it for you, you must do it. Paragraphs is quite difficult because often the tendency is just to write one big paragraph, and then the other thing is where do you divide the paragraphs. It can be a bit random, but just try and aim for 2 or 3 paragraphs. That should be fine. Often it's not clear where you must divide them. Between stages should be fine. And then a lot of verbs and nouns, like to construct and construction, to generate and generation. Definitely that's an opportunity for you to improve your increase your vocabulary score. These are called word forms: nouns, verbs, adjectives. So change between them. I've added some vocabulary here, but I mean you could add and add and add. I just put this here because you should try and develop your own process list. For example, these 2 words over here, these are to do with eggs. If we look at the salmon again, there are eggs there, and those 2 verbs, the fish lays the eggs, and then the eggs hatch and a baby comes out, a baby fish comes out. So it's just some vocabulary might come up in processes: boil, separate, pour, melt, divide, that sort of thing. It's difficult to make a process vocabulary list, but you should start one. Alright, let's get going. So this wasn't too difficult. It looks difficult when you first see it, but a lot of these processes look very difficult and then they're not so difficult. As you can see, they have divided it for you into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages. So before you even start writing, you should just take a look and see, okay, I'm going to do a sentence over here, sentence over there, maybe just 5 sentences, but maybe extra sentences over there or there. I'll show you what I mean. But first, let's do our paraphrase. So paraphrase is very simple. Very often you'll see they use how in the question. I've got another one that I've got to add for homework. This one is from a real test, so make sure you do it. I've added it in the description, and then I've also added a model answer there for you. So We'll talk about that later. You're going to do that yourself. But again, they use the word how. That's what I wanted to point out for now. So you can change this sort of thing into a noun phrase, the recycling of glass or something like that, production of electricity from geothermal energy. Here you can paraphrase, use a synonym. Generation is fine. But like this, students want to try and paraphrase electricity. Don't paraphrase electricity. Geothermal, how are you going to paraphrase that? You can't. Don't try and paraphrase every word. Sometimes a word is a word and there's no synonym for it. Right, so I would just say the figure or the picture, maybe the figure. And then I like the word depicts, but you can say illustrates. The paraphrase is not that important. So the figure, so I've just said the figure depicts the process of generation of electricity from geothermal energy. Don't worry too much about this paraphrase. Right, now onto the overview. Now this is very important. Most of the time, this structure can cover your overviews for the process. Overall, it can be seen that the process by which, now this is very nice. It's kind of quite formal academic language, so use it if you can. And here we're going to say the verb and what is happening. Electricity is generated. Usually it'll be passive if you've got by which. The process by which electricity is generated is a, and then you're going to have two adjectives in there. I'll tell you what they are. Process, which consists of X stages. This is the number of stages. In our example, it's 5. And then you're going to try and name the stages, which can be difficult. So, the process by which electricity is produced from geothermal energy. This whole thing, this is one big noun phrase. You can change it to something like the production of electricity from geothermal energy. It's fine, just put the big noun phrase in there. But I like this by which. It gives you a nice passive structure, and the examiner will like it if you do that. Right, then we're going to have two adjectives over here. What are these adjectives? The first one is how many steps it is. Usually you're going to use Usually you're going to use this word, multi-step. But maybe it could just be a 3-step process, or you could even use a number and say 5-step process. Please notice the difference between steps and stages. These 5 things are stages. So it would, most of the time, it's safest just to go with multi-step over there. So there it is, a multi-step. And then this, you're just going to say whether it's linear or cyclical. Does it end up in a different place to where it started, or does it go round and round in a cycle? Here's 2 examples of cyclical, this recycling of glass. Cyclical comes from the word cycle, like bicycle, which is something like a wheel that goes around and around. So this one is obviously cyclical. Also, this salmon one is also cyclical. But our one today is actually linear. Be careful. It looks like it's cyclical. And this happens often when students think it's cyclical because it's in a circle, but it's actually linear. The water here goes around, and they don't say anything about the water going back into that tank. So we just assume that the water goes out somewhere there. So it's not a cyclical process, it's a linear process. So that we're going to put over there. Right. It's a multi-step linear process which consists of, and we've got 5 stages. And now this is quite difficult. You've got to name the stages. If you don't do anything there, it's okay, but you really want to try and name the stages. Doesn't have to be fancy. I would say stage 1, pumping down. Stage 2, geothermal zone, or this is where the water gets heated up. So I would say stage 2, heating, pumping up, condenser, electricity production. And there you go, there's your very nice overview. Overall, it can be seen that the process by which electricity is produced, very nice, from geothermal energy is a multi-step linear process, which, so we've got a lovely complex sentence there, consists of 5 stages, and we've given the overview of the stages, given them some names. What happens if you can't do this? It's possible you can't do this. Then try and think of some other information that you can give. For this, get creative. I would say which takes place above and below ground. That would be okay. It's not as good as the other one, but if you can't do the other one, see if you can add some other kind of information. Anyway, we've got our 5 stages. Right, so then we're ready to start writing our actual essay. So you're going to do a sentence there, and linking language is very, 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 very important in this. The examiner is looking for linking language. So we're going to say, in the first stage, cold water is pumped, passive is pumped from a tank down 4.5 kilometers below the surface of the earth, or 4.5 kilometers underground. Just want to point out here, this is actually a passive, but they drop the is. This cold water is pumped down, but often in tables and diagrams, they drop the is to make it shorter. So you might want to quickly pause the video, think of what sentence you're going to say. Here's my sentence. In the first stage, very important, cold water is pumped passive from a storage tank down to a distance of 4.5 kilometers below the surface of the earth. You could say underground. That's a good opportunity for some nice vocabulary. Right, next, the water travels in stage 2. You can say in the second stage, but you don't want to repeat in the first stage, in the second stage, in the third stage, in the fourth stage. You want to try and use different linking language. So I'll say in stage 2, or I'll say next. Okay, in this example, I'll just say next. The water, you can say travels, or you can say is pumped. It's a question of whether you want to do active or passive here. You could just say moves or goes. I think I'm going to say something simple like moves. Next, the water, I'll do active because it's the water doing it. The water moves through the geothermal zone, which contains hot rocks, to the production well. So I'm going to change this. This is just a simple one. Next, the water moves from the introduction well through the hot rocks in the geothermal zone to the production well. But here's a very important thing that I want to show you with process is you're going to use this relative pronoun where it is heated, comma. Usually our relative pronouns that we use are which and sometimes who. But often in process, you're going to use the where relative pronoun because it's a place. And this is a very nice complex sentence. So it moves from the introduction well through the hot rocks in the geothermal zone where it is heated to the production well. You must try and say all of this stuff. Don't leave anything out. Paraphrase or don't paraphrase, it's fine. But make sure that you mention all of the things on the diagram. To the production well. Right, next, linking language. Let's just go with after that. Right, so I said after that, the hot water, make sure I said hot water, is pumped back up to the surface. And I think that's a good place for us to start a new paragraph. So, quite simple so far. One sentence, one sentence, one sentence. However, let me start doing it simply first, and then I'll show you how I'd like to change it a little bit. So we could do it like this. The fourth stage of the process is formed by the condenser. But I actually want to put my linking language at the end, just to change it around a little bit. And that means that this will change from active to passive. So I'm actually going to say a condenser forms the fourth stage of the process. You don't have to do this, but I just did it because I want to change the structures a little bit. I don't want to start with the linking language with every sentence. So put this linking language at the end. It's just a nice thing to do to change, to give a bit of variety to your structures. Then, this is a very important thing for you to also learn. It's kind of the same thing as here. You can use comma where, or you can use full stop here, comma. So I could do it like this, or I could do it like this. Same thing, but use it in the process. It's very useful. Here, what happens? The hot water is converted to steam. You can say the hot water becomes steam, active, or the hot water is converted to steam. Right, so just notice it's a little bit different here because I use two sentences for this stage just to give a bit of variety. Actually, this first sentence is just linking language and introduces the word condenser. And then I can say in the fifth stage. But a nice thing to do, and you can do it with every process, in the fifth and final stage. It sounds very nice. Do it if you can remember to do it. In the fifth and final stage, now we're going to have quite a long sentence here, or two sentences. The steam turns a turbine, or you can say a turbine is powered by the steam. I'm going to say comma and, but you could put a full stop there and then say a new sentence. And a generator is powered by the turbine. But I think I'm going to change it to active, and the turbine powers a generator, because then I can say comma which, a nice comma which. So if you're going to say comma which here, you need the generator over there, and then the generator produces electricity. And that's that. If this was a cyclical process, you would say something at the end here and the process starts all over again. Sorry, this should be turbine. But it's a linear process, so we don't have that. Let's see how many words. It's 147 words, so it's fine. Maybe you could say something about this. The electricity is then distributed, or then enters the distribution network. Let's say it, but you don't need to. That kind of thing is, if you have some nice vocabulary and you just want to show off your vocabulary, then add that sort of thing in. All right, great. So a lot of linking language. Please notice the linking language. Also, a lot of active and passive, mainly passive, but if you want to add some variety to your structures, do active. The overview is divided into the stages. Notice I didn't paraphrase the vocabulary very much. A little bit of paraphrase is fine, but a lot of this you can't paraphrase. How do I paraphrase water? You don't need to. So let's take a look at the one in Cambridge 12. And they gave a sample answer which got a band 6. Let's just see what the examiner says. You can read it on your own. Nice paragraphing. I can see immediately some nice linking language. He's put the overview at the end. That's not a problem. Anyway, let's see what the examiner says. Candidate, clear introduction and an overview of the key stages. Please notice the key stages. So you want to put the stages, the key stages, in your overview. Each stage is identified and described. Great, we did that. There are some minor errors in reporting. Okay. There is room for expansion of the description of each stage, which could help, okay, to achieve a higher score. Yes, okay, but that's if you're writing very quickly and you have enough time. Because this, I counted, this is 140 something words, so it's enough. There is a clear overall progression, and each stage being signaled by appropriate markers. So there's the linking language. These markers are adequate, but a higher score might be achieved by varying their position in each sentence rather than always placing them at the beginning. So that's what we did over here. We put it at the end of the process. Just once is enough. The range of vocabulary is adequate. That's fine. Vocabulary is the vocabulary. Some spelling mistakes, that's not forgivable. I can understand a couple of these, but really you should know through is not true. Don't make these easy spelling mistakes. Word formation, yes, a couple of errors. That's changing between nouns and adjectives. Mix of simple and complex, accurate use of passive. So he mentions the passive for the process. Some errors, otherwise fine. All right, good. Take a look at that if you want, but you can see the examiner mentioned all of the things that I focused on in this essay. Right, finally, you've got one of it. Put it in the description. This is your homework. This is from a real test. It's a cyclical process. Do the essay yourself. I've attached a model answer there. Of course, your essay won't be exactly the same as my model answer, but try and follow all of the principles that we used. Get your overview right. Name the stages. Focus on active and passive. Use your linking language, not always at the beginning of the sentence, and make sure you have some paragraphs. Also, try and change between nouns and verbs wherever you can. Make sure you mention everything that is on the diagram. All right, good luck. Thank you very much.